students, we started lesson 2, Nelson Mandela, A Long Walk to Freedom, and we were just continuing with when he was that inaugural ceremony was going on, and he was addressing the international guests, South African people, and the people watching him all over the world. And he promised that this his land, it is not going to experience poverty, discrimination and deprivation and sufferings any more. So now let us see. A few moments later, we all lifted our eyes in awe as a spectacular array of South African jets, helicopters and troop carriers roared in perfect formation over the Union buildings. So he is telling, Nelson Mandela, that when he finished his address, what happened after a few moments later, they all just lifted, or they just looked upward in awe when they heard the roar of African jets, helicopters and troop carriers. They were just moving in a spectacular array mean an impressive display over the Union building. It was not only a display of pinpoint precision and military force, but a demonstration of the military's loyalty to democracy, to a new government that had been freely and fairly elected. So it was not a formality that they were helicopters and troops carriers and jets, they were moving there. It was not only a display of pinpoint precision. It was not a formality, or it was not a custom. It was not a pinpoint precision, but of military force. But it was a display of the military's loyalty to the democracy and to the newly formed or elected government, which had been elected freely and fairly. Only moments before, the highest generals of the South African Defence Force and Police, their chests bedecked with ribbons and medals from days gone by, saluted me and pledged their loyalty. And not only that army, but the highest generals of the army, South African Defence Force and Police, they also, whose chests were decorated with the ribbons and medals, they also saluted him and pledged or displayed their loyalty. I was not unmindful of the fact, not unmindful mean conscious of, aware of, mean it was in his mind. He did not forget that, the fact that not so many years before, that some years before, they would not have saluted but arrested me. Okay, these people, they did not salute but arrested him, as we have earlier read that he was in jail. Finally, a chevron of Impala jets left a smoke trail of the black, red, green, blue and gold of the new South African flag. And after that, what happened? Finally, a chevron. Chevron mean a pattern in the shape of a V, like this, victory. Then Impala jets, they just left a smoke trail of black, red, green, blue and gold color of the new South African flag in the pattern of V, or making the sign V for victory. Now, the day was symbolized for me by the playing of our two national anthems and the vision of white singing this Nkosi Sikelel Africa and black singing Die Stem, the old anthem of the Republic. So, the day was symbolized. On that day, two national anthems were played. Whites sang this Nkosi Sikelel Africa and black they sang Die Stem, the old anthem of the Republic. Although that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem they once despised, they would soon know the words by heart. So although even that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem, This white people, or the group of white people, they don't know the lyrics of this anthem of black or republic, old republic, and the blacks, they were not known to the lyrics of the whites national anthem, but very soon they would learn it by heart. On the day of the inauguration, I was overwhelmed with a sense of history. On that day of the inauguration, when he was taking the pledge, he became emotional, or he remembered some historic events. He started thinking, or that some historical incidents came to his mind. In the first decade of the 20th century, a few years after the bitter Anglo-Boer War and before my own birth, the white-skinned peoples of South Africa patched up their differences and erected a system of racial domination against the dark-skinned peoples of their own land. So which incident of history, which thing came to his mind? That is that in the first decade of the 19th century, first decade of 19th century mean 1901 to 1910, a few years after the bitter Anglo-Boer War, when this Anglo-Boer War was occurred, and before my own Anglo-Boer, they are the people, those who came from other countries and settled in South Africa. And before my own birth, and before his Nelson Mandela's birth, the white-skinned peoples of South Africa patched up their differences. The people of South Africa, they just mended their differences, finished their differences, they made a compromise and erected a system, and they started a system of racial domination. That after this war, they patched with those people and started this racial domination against the dark-skinned peoples of their own land, against the black people or dark-skinned people, those who were living in their own country. And the structure they created formed the basis of one of the hardest, most inhumane societies the world has ever known. And this structure which they started, that they started ruling against dark-skinned people, this structure created the basis of one of the hardest or most inhuman society the world has ever known, which South Africa was experiencing. Now, in the last decade of the 20th century and my own 8th decade as a man, that system had been overturned. Now the man is saying this, racial domination, it had been started in the first decade, and now in the last decade, he just won this election in 1994. So in last decade, and this man, he was also in his 8th decade, 80s. When it started, he was not born, and now he is also in his 80s. This system had been overturned mean reversed or finished, you can say, forever, and replaced by one that recognized the rights and freedom of all people. And this system that racial domination, this system has been replaced by one that has given rights and freedom to all the people, regardless of the color of their skin, without having discriminated the color of their skin. So that's all for today. Rest we'll do later.